Yera. I hope good morning, and I hope I pronounced it correctly. Milner Reality. Good morning to each and everyone. We're allowing everybody to come in and come join us. I hope you have a warm cup of coffee with you, and you are ready for the week. I know for rental agents this time of the month, it is less chaos. I'm not going to say it's quiet because I know this is when you're hustling and bustling to get new tenants in and all of that. Robin, so nice to see you. Welcome. Um, and we take just an hour. I know we booked for an hour and a half, but we want to run through a couple of things we're going to discuss. If you have any questions, what I want to start doing is every month, I want to take a couple of questions that we get often, and I want to answer it here. Because if one person is thinking or wondering, most probably somebody else is wondering as well. So you are welcome to email your questions and say webinar question, and then you just put your question and you'll know in the next webinar, we will address it as well. Because, some of these things that regularly pops up. Now, just to say, remember, legal advice is a total different story because legal advice can only be particular to a specific matter. Because if you change any of those facts a bit, your outcome will be different. It's like if you bake a cookie. We all say, yes, it gets flour and it gets butter and eggs. But then if you put cinnamon, it's going to be a cinnamon cookie. If you have coffee, so you can't always use the same advice for everything. So if it's a general thing, we can always discuss it in general. The lovely people from Polokwane, it's always great to have you guys online. My team members is more smiling and they have their pictures on there. While everybody's coming in, I wanted to change this, and I know we call it the Property Pulse webinar, but I almost want to make it like Coffee with Elise, if I think about it, because we want to discuss, and I want to give you guys some feedback as well. So just to make sure you are seeing my screen, and so we had birthday cake this month a lot as well. Again, last month we had Expella's birthday and we ate cake and party. This month we had our team members, Danica and Extian, had birthdays. Thank you from their side to everybody for the birthday wishes. Antreed from Van Deventers, it was her birthday. The people that work with Van Deventers, they are on our panel and it's her birthday. Sure, that lady is like a machine. And then Sean Lake, you guys know I do a lot of trainings and seminars with Sean Lake. I endorse his trainings because he really does practical, good training. So that is a happy birthday to them. Then there's a couple of names of some agencies that people that birthdays. I didn't mention everyone. Marina, love it. Katrine, please tell me which day, but I'll check on Facebook. Happy birthday for you. We look excuses to celebrate because we all believe if you eat cake on your birthday, you do not gain weight. No, that's something that's not true, but we want to believe it. Priscilla, good morning. Charles Edward Properties. I love you guys as well. We're looking forward to be in Cape Town in August. So just on everybody that had their birthdays, going to have their birthdays, remember you are special. It's your day. Do something that day to treat yourself. It's one day that is your day. So that's just a quick shout out on that. Then exciting things. I don't know the people in Gauteng, if you know already. There's the Reside InvestorCon or even the Reside Summit. That is from the 16th to the 20th of July. Specifically from the 16th to the 17th, we're having an InvestorCon where they're really going to do training specifically for investors. I know most of you guys are thinking, oh, Elise, but what is that relevant to me? If you deal with investors, maybe this is a good place to come and network because you're going to see a lot of investors. You'll see from the lineup, we have amazing people doing the talks, which is going to be amazing. You have expertise there that range from a whole lot. I think if you quick glance, you're going to go, yeah, I recognize the TPN people. But I mean, some of the big names there, the lady with the pink jacket, Celine, I mean, she's like a mastermind on Stockfile and how group people invest in property. You have, so there's a lot of great people to be there. So if you can, please attend it. We are going to be closer to the time. I'll try and see if I can have my next webinar before the 16th, because I'm going to get a few free tickets, and then we can hand out free tickets. But you have to be in Gauteng. I don't want to give you a ticket and you can't attend. So that's one of the things that I just wanted to mention. Please put it in your diary. It's from the 16th to the 20th. Go to the website. You'll see there's a lot of things, that competitions. I think the stores are going to be great, so please don't miss out. Then just some feedback. We've been going around the country with private property. Marina and they know Armand was there in Polokwane. We've been in Nelspruit. We've been in, Armand has been in PE. So I thought I'll just put some pictures and showing how much we had fun. Plus, I love that picture of the Superman and Expeller, hey? So we've been going around just to everybody that's in KZN. I don't know if there's anybody in KZN online today. We are going to be, well, not we, I'm going to be in KZN in July. So please, if you can, go look at the private property. If you're not sure, contact me, then I can send you the link that you can register. It's really going to be amazing, and it would be great to meet all of you again there. They have great events. It's really fun. So don't miss out on that. Now, the real reason why you guys are here this morning is pre-qualifying tenants. Now, I'm just going to say quickly, we're not going to talk about vetting in full. I mean, that we've dealt with in the past, and we can deal with it in the future again. But today, I really want to see on, ways to work clever. How do you focus on things that you need to focus on? And one of those things are pre-qualifying a tenant. And you're saying, Elise, but how are you going to talk about this to me? Because we have, from Expeller side, there's a lot of people contact us and go, Elise, I've got this tenant. Should I even proceed with the application? And that's when I realized that, because your agents go out and they find the tenants often, and they do a lot of groundwork before it even gets to the administrator. And I thought, if you're running around and you're going to show a property to each and every person interested in a property, you are really going to burn yourself out. So what is the pre-qualifying thing? 3 top things you can do to make your life a bit easier. And I think the first one is the one that you need your confidence. Don't be afraid. This is the one that you ask the questions, and I have to give credit to Robin specifically, that when we had a discussion and she mentioned this is, when somebody phones you and say, listen, I'm interested in this property, go and immediately ask those questions. Say, thank you for contacting us, but let's quickly check. Your rental is 10,000 Rand. What is your income? Or just say, listen, what is your income? Your income, or do you have a partner? What's your joint income? Because if they're earning 15,000 Rand and the rent is 10,000 Rand, what is the use of you applying this person? Because clearly they will not be able to afford to reside in this property. So to ask the question immediately, you don't have to sound rude. You can still be sensitive without scaring them off. But ask the question, because it's going to save you time. Also, if it's a non-smoking unit or no pets allowed, when they phone, they're also inquiring to say, because they saw a picture, they saw a short description, and they're also inquiring as to whether this is something they are interested in. So if maybe it's better to ask in a way saying, hello, so do you have any pets that you want to bring in? Are you looking for a pet-friendly place? If they go, yes, actually I have a cat, or I have a lizard, or whatever they have, you can say to them, oh, but this landlord is very strict on no pets. Like, even if the complex allows pets, this landlord is a no-go. So can I rather show you something else? Because just because they don't get that specific unit, You know they're funding for that unit, so you have an idea what they're looking for. So you can actually then rather place them in a place which is more suitable for them. So Robin had a good idea, and I'm picking on her a bit because we saw each other recently, as to say to them, okay, great, I'm going to send you a pre-qualifying questionnaire to quickly complete. So it's not a vetting, it's not going to cost them money, but it's going to allow you to see who do you go with first. We do it with a lot of things. I mean, to see, what type of people we work with and all of those things. So do that with tenants, because if you accept every little tenant, and sometimes they sound super nice, but they can still be the wrong fit. So if, especially new agents, if you feel overwhelmed, have a few pre-qualifying questions always on hand. To say, listen, if somebody phones me regarding a property, I am going to ask these 3 questions. To say, instead of telling them, is it the rent is 10,000 and will you be able to afford it? That's not going to help, because in their mind, they're going to go, will be able to afford it, but you earn 15,000 rand. Yeah, but I don't have transport. I don't really have expenses. Okay, if you don't have transport, how do you get to work? Where if you purely change your questions, okay, what is your income? Can I ask you a few pre-qualifying questions just to make sure that this unit is for you, and you'll see if you can qualify. And remember, I'm not saying we are going to take you. It's pre-qualifying. It's like you go past the first round. So that's one of the things that you need to discuss. Deal breakers. Canvas it. So if the unit can only take 2 people, so great. And who will be occupying the property? Is it you and your family? Yes, it's you, me, my wife, and my grandmother, my mother-in-law. Okay, great. But sorry, the property can only take 2 people. That is important. You can't have additional people to this unit. It's a deal breaker. But can I rather show you another unit, or can I've got other units available that might fall within your budget. I know this is things that all the experienced agents are going, yeah, Elise. I mean, this is so obvious. But I often see this doesn't happen. And I still have agents saying, then I had to go there and I meet, and then they don't even qualify. I don't know. Time is so valuable. We don't have time to waste it. So if you can, try and make that more important. So that was my first thing. The second thing, which is quite obvious to me, is the first impressions. We rely on our agents to do vetting. And one of the most important parts of the vetting process is your gut feeling. Now, this is going to sound weird, and men, please do not judge overall, but your gut feeling is the most important thing. So if somebody arrives, and I mean, firstly, if they arrive late, I mean, that's of a concern, especially if they didn't even phone you or contact you. I mean, that's a clear sign of disrespect. If they don't pitch, and then the next day they phone, can they now come? And I mean, do you know how many agents actually phone me and say, Elise, initially I knew this is going to be a problem, so I shouldn't have addressed it then, but I thought, let me give them a chance. No, be clear and concise. Say, listen, confirm your meeting, especially if they confirm and they don't pitch up. That to me is already a sign that they're not a good tenant. The second thing is, if they arrive, and it's not about the car, it's not about the clothes, it is, if somebody comes in and they give you an impression that they're going to be difficult. I mean, if you do the inspection and somebody is tedious on each and everything, know that you're going to have a problem tenant, especially if the property needs some love. Right? I know agents don't say a property needs work, it says it needs love. So if a property needs love, don't put somebody that's cynical and have problems with everything in there. You're going to have a problem. They need a brand new place where there's no maintenance needed. Or if you get in there and you see that, I don't know if this person is maybe is the young person with his motorbike, and the complex consists of 80 years and above, you're going to have a problem, hey? Because he's going to want to have a braai. He's going to want to have a party every now and again. He's going to try to be just young. I mean, he's not going to do anything wrong. But remember, him going to bed at 10 o'clock still listening to music is going to be extremely late for people that goes to bed at 8. So first impression, see if this is the right fit. And I mean, I'm not expecting you to say to him, this is not going to work, sorry. Don't be discriminatory. Say to them, you know what, I think I'm going to have a better fit for you. And Marina, and just to say, Miriam, 15 minutes, you are very generous. I think that's reasonable. But also these days, somebody can really just send you a WhatsApp and say, I'm on my way. Sorry, I'm late. And it's important. Know your client's needs and rules, but I'm not perfect. Because, often I also know that the agent said, well, I didn't know this can happen. And like, if you lease out a property in a unit, you sort of need to know all of those type of things. So that's the second tip I want to give you. The third one is paperwork. Now, I somehow look tired now and I want the extra cup of coffee. And I'm thinking, this is the documents that we sometimes get. I can just think the horrors that you receive. If you send a form to somebody to complete their details on, and they're not forthcoming, and they don't give you all of the details, is that not just an alarming fact? We had a very good agent. The matter worked as follows. There was a tenant in the unit and they actually subletted. And they were a bit clever because they subletted for more. And when it came to the end of the terms, roundabout way, they actually started speaking to the subtenant. And the subtenant has been paying every month. There was no default. And I mean, clearly they had affordability. The problem was he was a foreigner. And for that reason, he didn't really want to do it on his stage. I said to the agent, listen, from Expedo's side, we're happy. I mean, clearly he's been paying everything. So do the application and we will accept him. Yes, he says, very well person, everything is good. And then he sent me in the application, he gets the application forms back and he says, now suddenly I'm getting false information. It's clearly fraudulent. Some of the information is not even correct. That was the biggest warning sign. So this guy's behavior up until now would have granted him a lease agreement for another 12 months. But because he was not willing to give us the proper documents or give in false information, no, that doesn't work. So very, very important. Make sure they complete all the details. If it's half, ask them to complete it in full. Because also, if you go and complete it without confirming with them, they can go about it and say, well, I never said that. And if they specifically leave out, for example, who's going to be the occupants, do you have anybody else we can contact should we not get hold of you? Like an emergency member, or do you have any family in the area or something to that? And they leave it out. Please question them on that. Yes, sometimes people might not complete something because they didn't understand the question or they were not sure. Check in with them. But if you need to start begging people for things, definitely a no-go. And Marina, this lady's on fire. Definitely we are making a note, Marina. Okay. That's the other thing that I'm seeing. A lot of tenants think if they pay the deposit, you're just going to accept them. Please, rather pay the money back. Because a deposit doesn't secure a property. If they give you the money and the paperwork look terrible, you would ideally want to give them the money back. Well, maybe you're lucky because you can take your money off that they owe you for doing the vetting and wasting your time. But don't feel obliged to take the lease agreement or offer the lease agreement just because you paid the deposit. I hope that helps. So that's the three things just on pre-qualifying. Before it goes into looking at the fraudulent documents, affordability, everything, do your I want to say, top part, just checking before you even spend the time on the rest. So that was just on pre-qualifying. Then I have a few questions that has really been popping up, and I think it is important to mention and just address. because I think some people, if somebody's thinking it, other people are wondering as well. So this question is popping up a lot, saying, will Expello accept this person? People, affordability is our most important thing. So yes, you must be satisfied they can afford it. And the thing is, if there's a history of non-paying of rent or late paying of rent, we are not going to accept them. So if they're on a debt review and they have never defaulted on their rent, and we're not talking about that once-off thing. That does happen. But overall, they've paid their rent, but they defaulted on anything else. Yes, we will accept them. So I know there's a lot of insecurity, but when insecurity is really a problem, if you even not sure if you want to place this tenant, if you're not comfortable, I mean, that's actually going to be one of our first questions. If you are not comfortable placing a tenant, we are not going to be comfortable placing a tenant. That's our first indicator. Yes, if you say, listen, I'm not sure, I might be over strict, then we can have the discussion. But don't try and override it with a false sense of security. That's one thing that I have to mention. What's the rule? You should be comfortable with that tenant to place them in your own property. If there's something that's really of a concern that pitches up, maybe it's got merit. And I'm not just talking about a bad credit score, because a bad credit score is not always everything. I mean, everybody goes through hard times. You have people that started their own businesses and it went wrong. I mean, we're not going to prejudice those type of people. But you will know if there is a person that goes on credit and they don't care to pay. Because they know, it's not like they're going to get arrested. And most people say, well, we don't even have assets, so what are you going to attach? So that's just one of the things I want you guys to also keep in mind. The second thing is the tenant in breach of a lease if he pays the rent but not the utilities? Please send the letter of demand. If they haven't paid the utilities, they're still in breach. So I've seen a lot of people not paying or not sending the letter of demand because they go, it's only the utilities that hasn't been paid. I mean, it's only 2,000 Rand. But after 5 months, it's 10,000 Rand. And now that's a problem. And most people cannot afford to pay double the rent every month. Or, they need a payment plan. So if there's a problem in the first month, let's address it on the first month. Why are they not paying? I just speak to them. We're seeing more and more people that there's disputes on the utilities, but the way it's being handled is people just ignore it. If somebody says, listen, and I know we are all frustrated with tenants not paying and raising excuses on a general basis, but you still need to take it on individual every time. So you can't be prejudicial and say, here comes another excuse. Listen to what the person has to say, because tenants does feel they don't get heard, and there's a problem, and maybe there was a water leakage because of maintenance not being done. That needs to be addressed, but nobody's answering and nobody's really looking at the queries, and we're leaving it till it escalates to such a big fight. Usually, if the matter then comes to us, is the landlord is on the brink of war. The agent is, I don't know, they want to run for a shelter because they're getting bombed from everywhere, and the tenant is fighting, and everybody's just frustrated. Where if the very first breach happened, it would have helped a lot if we could have just managed it then. Okay, let's quickly, Marina just made a mention, not all agents charge the utilities. Can do this. And the tenant does not feel it is for their account. Oh, Marina, one of the things, remember the lease agreement stipulates. And again, when you do the lease agreement, it's important to say, you pay the rent, you pay your utilities, you pay your security, you pay Expello, whatever they need to pay. That's part of the lease. It's a package deal. They can't just go, well, I want to pay this, I don't want to pay this, I want to pay this, I don't want to pay this. So convey this. And also when you do your pre-qualifying, you have to know more or less what is the utilities, because it doesn't help you saying, okay, you can afford the 10,000 Rand, but you didn't take into consideration the additional cost is 12, it's actually an additional 2. So you should see that, can somebody afford 12,000 Rand or 13,000 Rand, because you must make provision for this. Because Marina, I have seen this actually, that agents go and they vet a person and place them because they can afford the rent. But nobody really discussed or even took into consideration what will be the utilities. As an agent, you should know what is the average utilities and say to them, okay, the rent is 10, your utilities are going to be additional to you. Let's see if you can afford 12,000 instead of just 10. So that's another thing that's important. But again, to address it. Chantal's got a question. Is it maybe a good idea to put the utilities on the application? Chantal, I'm not sure. How do you mean? You're welcome to unmute and quickly ask your question.
Morning, everybody. Hi, Elise. What I mean is, we obviously put the rent amount and what the deposit and contract fees and so on the application as a quote to the tenant, but to maybe include to say, look, utilities is over and above your rent, to just somehow bring it in on the application so that they are aware that there is going to be that additional cost as well.
Okay, so yes, if your application form sort of summarize the expenses for their knowledge, because remember, it's actually just the intro information for the tenant, doesn't really form part of the application form. But make sure that you say it's an estimate, because the last thing you want is that you say the utilities is 2,000, it's 500 Rand, and next month it's 700 Rand. Then they're going to go and say, yeah, but on your application form, it said it's 500 Rand. Now you say 700 Rand. That is something that can be difficult. So just have an estimation so that they know, just someone say the estimated or the average usage, depending on the occupant, can be so much. So that's something that one can have a look at. Okay, I just want to see here. Okay, it's Korean, very good notes. I love it. Yeah, prepaid is easy, hey, because they will always get money to do the prepaid. The problem is if you have to recover the money. But again, did they budget for it? Lindy and Alida on them, they sharing. Hello, good morning. Elise, just to share, our application as well as our lease agreement stipulates electricity, water, sewage, and refuse. However, when the tenant opened a case at the tribunal, a tribunal insisted that the owner is liable to pay the basic electricity cost, and the tenant is only liable for usage of electricity, water, and sewage. Now that's a very good one. At what tribunal was it? The Joburg tribunal. I'm not sure if it's Lindy or Lida. They can just let us know. So that's a good thing, because I mean, many people are actually charged electricity for the power to get to the property, Johannesburg. So that is part of the supply that is being given by the owner. So the owner will pay for it to be taken to the property, but the actual usage is for the tenant. So it does make sense, although one will say it shouldn't. But I mean, how often do they dispute it? So I would say rather put everything, if they really dispute it, to put against it. I do think that it does have a bit of sense to say, to get the electricity, because you are leasing out a property with electricity and water, hey? I wonder what will people say if they say, listen, I'm leasing out this property, but it doesn't have water and it doesn't have electricity. So if you want to, if you want these things, you have to pay for it separately. That would be interested. But most properties, and even if you show a property, I mean, you show it to them, there's electricity and there's water. So to get the services up to there should be for the owner's account, and the actual usage, it should just be for the tenant. You see, this is a good debate. That's why I love this. And I love the experiences that's coming through, because we're all learning. It's those small things that sometimes, we think it's obvious. And when we have the discussion, it actually comes by. So thank you for the participation and the questions. Now, this is one that comes, I see even more, is the landlord is in breach, what should the tenant do? Now, what is important to note is that it happens, and it happens a lot. And again, what I'm hearing a lot from tenants, they're saying, but I told the agent, but the agent isn't listening to me. So to tell the tenant at that stage, you have to make one thing clear. Dear tenant, I'm an agent of the landlord. I can only do what I'm instructed. I cannot do something because I feel it's right, but the landlord doesn't authorize me to do this. So make that always clear. I'm an agent. I'm acting on, yes, I've got all the knowledge, I've got everything, but I'm not the owner. I'm not the owner. Even if I feel that something is wrong, I cannot do this. So firstly, let the tenant get heard, and then you say to them, tenant, you have a copy of your lease agreement. You will note in the lease agreement, there's a letter of demand. Now, there's two things a tenant can actually say. They can demand, for example, please fix the geyser. If you don't fix the geyser in 20 business days, I'm going to fix the geyser and I'm going to deduct it from the rent. Okay? What will usually happen is the landlord will go, oh, no, I'll fix it myself and I'll claim it from my insurance. I want the full rent. Or they're going to go, oh, well, then at least it gets done. I don't have the cash to fix it now. I know a lease agreement says you cannot just deduct, but this is not just deducting. They're placing them on terms and they're giving them a solution. That's what I'm telling tenants. Please give us the exact what you want to do. Then the tenant should actually come back and say, listen, you haven't fixed the geyser. Here's the quote that I got for the geyser to be fixed. I'm going to proceed to get it done. Or the only other alternative a tenant has is to say, well, now I'm cancelling the lease agreement and I'm vacating. And if they then cancel, they cannot be held liable for a cancellation penalty. So that's also to protect them, because if they're just unhappy and they're going to give notice to vacate, they can be held liable for a cancellation penalty. And again, I'm telling tenants, listen, there's procedures for a landlord, there's a procedure for a tenant. The problem is tenants aren't being educated or guided. It's almost like an unspoken thing. So please, if a tenant is, and especially if your landlord is not cooperating, make sure the paperwork is in place. It's going to make your life better. It's going to be everybody's better, because as an agent, you want the processes to run correctly. I'm going to quickly look at the chat. You can always just stipulate on your lease that your tenant is liable for the electricity or prepaid, or you don't have to give the exact amount. Perfect, Bianca. In the lease agreement, definitely. I think it's just on the pre-qualifying. You just have to give an estimation to make sure they can afford it. Okay, so all those are still on the electricity. So please, please, please guide your tenants with that. Let them get heard, because the problem is if it escalates to such a big event, it really makes it difficult to negotiate with them. Feelings are out of place, and I'm hearing this more than often, but the agent is not listening or not acting to it. And it takes a long time for us just to explain to the tenant, but it's not the agent's fault, it's the landlord's fault. And guys, I almost want to just say here, if it ever comes out that the complaint has been given to an agent and it's not been conveyed to the landlord, you're opening yourself for problems. Because if the owner ever says, but as my agent, you should have told me this because I could have prevented X, Y, and Z happening, they can say you were negligent. So please make sure, yes, clean out the request and determine what is nonsense or what is not nonsense. But even if it's nonsense, you can say to your landlord, the request by the tenant is 1, 2, 3, which I deem is urgent and necessary. Then 4, 5, and 6 is really, you don't have to care about that too much. Okay. So make sure that you manage it. It's going to also prevent that you end up with 100 other emails because you addressed it in the beginning. Okay. So that's one of the things I really want to mention, a letter of demand from the tenant side. Now, this is one, and I know people will say, Elise, how dare you? Should maintenance be done when a tenant did not pay? From Expeller side, I know you will say no. They have to pay first, then we do it. It's almost like you're using it as to force them to make payments. The problem that we're having on our side is it's creating a factual dispute. So many tenants are saying, well, I'm not going to pay because he's not fixing anything. The landlord says, well, I'm not going to fix anything because they're not paying. When you want to do an eviction or you go to any tribunal, you want to make sure the landlord looks good. Okay? He shouldn't have few wrongs doesn't make a right. So the landlord should still be in the green. Remember, everybody's sympathy is always with the tenant first. You need to turn it around. So say to the if you look at the maintenance, and I'm not talking about making the place pretty or superficial things, but if the geyser breaks, fix it, because you know what's going to happen at the end of the day. Nobody's going to care that the tenant didn't pay their rent for 2 months. They're going to care that the fact that you allowed small children to bath in ice cold water during the winter and cause them to get sick. You hear what is the story. Remember, presiding officers are people. They're going to look at you and say, listen, I know you're punishing the parents, but what about the poor children? So they should have done that, and please have a look at it. So, and if it needs to be, have a conversation with your landlords and say, listen, if you want us to keep a bit of money back from the rent, like extra 10% to deal with maintenance, to help you budget, because they don't budget. Some places are really, really shocking, and it can give one really nightmares. because and I understand, because landlords don't always have money. A lot of landlords don't approach their properties as a business, and they don't make provisions for improvements and so forth. So please have a look out for that. Okay, but where will the landlord get money to do repairs if the tenant doesn't pay? So, Regina, it is a good question. But technically, the landlord should be budgeting for it. And usually, if a tenant doesn't pay on the first month, then you deal with it. But most people don't even do maintenance beforehand, even though they get the money. So you have to educate your tenants to say to your landlord, listen, how are you going to budget to maintain the property if you lease it out? Because a lot of people take the money and just pay the bond and the utilities. There's not even money in the rent to make provision for maintenance. So even if they get the rent, doesn't mean they're going to do maintenance. Okay, so have the discussion. I'm not saying the tenant must live a real life. Yes, you use it for years, but just do it in boundaries. Are we allowed to keep an amount of rent money back and appoint a contractor even though the owner does not agree? No, Lindy, you can't. Because remember, as an agent, you need to act on behalf of the owner. In this sense, an agent is a lot like an attorney. You can advise and you can guide and you can tell them what to do, but you can never force them to do the right thing. What is important is you need to make sure that you at a stage need to actually draw the line and decide, am I proceeding with this mandate or not? Because I have to say as well, remember, yes, landlords talk, but tenants talk as well. And tenants say agencies, they go and say, listen, don't work with this agency because they don't come back to us regarding people not coming back to us. That's one of the biggest complaints. They don't fix stuff at the property. I'm seeing this often, and even things where when I get involved, it's often I hear that, listen, we have a list of complaints that's been given to the agent and nobody's doing anything. I mean, even if it is, go back to the tenant and say, listen, tenant, the problem is as follows. The landlord doesn't have the money to do this, and he cannot afford for you to deduct it from the rent. So this is sort of, you have to live it in that way as is. But give them some feedback and make them an informed decision. If you knew in the beginning the landlord cannot afford to make the maintenance, before placing a tenant, be upfront with them. You see this roof, it was leaking, it looks terrible, the landlord doesn't have the money to fix it. Do you want to stay here? me, then they're not going to give you a problem. Okay, let me quickly go back and look at the questions. Okay, so the one property, the one is, it's a small holding. The client doesn't want people with children because he had to evict people with children before. Listen, overall, I think your landlord is just misinformed. And one will have to have a look at that instance. Because just because you have children doesn't mean it's going to be more difficult. You're going to follow the same eviction process, whether you have elderly, disabled, women-headed households, all of that, two people. So no, it's not per se ideal, but I think you need to speak to him and get educated, because if it's a good couple and they look good, then it is going to make, he's maybe losing out. But I mean, he has his reasons. If you think it's his best thing, but educate them. Are we allowed to then place the tenant at another property? Lindy, are you saying that question of yours? We
Yes.
said try to just clarify. Is it when the landlord doesn't want to listen to you?
You know what? This has been for months. It's a new listing we did. We placed tenants. It's quite a sum of money for the property that they're paying. I think it's about 15,500. And obviously, yeah, there is major maintenance. I'm not talking about small maintenance where the roof is leaking badly. Some taps are running, some pipes has burst. So it's like really major maintenance. And when I kept the money aside, obviously, you know, it became a big problem. But the owner kept on promising to come through and see to all the problems. He even asked us to get our contractors to quote, but nothing happened. It went on like that for about 3-4 months.
Okay. So, Lindy, in that instance, for the tenants, definitely let them place the landlord on terms, saying that if he doesn't fix all of it, they will cancel and move out. I mean, they're not going to even offer to fix it because that's going to cost too much money, and you're not going to invest that money not in your own property. And then you are welcome to place that tenant somewhere else.
Okay.
I actually had a matter where the dispute with the tenant has escalated severely, and the tenant didn't pay rent. So it is with Expello, the tenant didn't pay rent for the past 2 months. And it's, it is difficult. So somebody phones me for a reference, and I say to them, listen, yes, the tenant didn't pay. Now, firstly, the agent was very happy or surprised that I was so upfront. I said, because you're phoning Expello for a reference. But what is important to know why she didn't pay. So still the indicator is affordability. If the property is well, you're not going to have problems because the tenant wasn't a problem for a long time until it reached such a point. So it does make it more difficult, but at least you have the full picture. Because you can see it as a problem tenant because they've been fighting about the maintenance, not letting not to pay. But if they go somewhere else and the maintenance are done, the property, they look good after the property because they feel they are being heard and also respected. I think that is something that is important. Okay. And I think that's the last of my questions. I know there's also a PayProp event, so people said to me, Lise, we need to go to the online PayProp thing. So we're not going to go later than 10 this morning. Please email me your questions. If you don't have my email address, it is elite@expello.co.za, and that we can address it on the next round. We learn, and I love this interaction. I always said I'm not a radio person. So please, if you have something or something interested and you want a specific topic, please reach out to me. Then we will do it in early in July, that we can also hand out some tickets. But I have to, for Marina, all the way in Polokwane, you made my day. I'm going to arrange that you get a nice Expello mug from us with a bit of goodies in it to say thank you for participating this morning. I really, really appreciate it. So a bit of love sent from Expello side to you. Okay. all the way to Polokwane. I want to say thank you to each and everyone. Please, if we don't have your numbers on our WhatsApp groups, or you want to join, well, you should be added to our emailing list now. We are always available. Corinne, I'm going to take this advantage to say, please send me a WhatsApp. I've got a question regarding that landlord of yours. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Keep well and be safe.